Oh, good morning. Don't fall off your chairs in shock, horror, or disbelief. We seem to be out of focus here for some reason. Um, let's find out what's going on here. Anyway, yeah, there we go. Right, just thought I'd drop in and apologize for there not being any live streams over the last few days. But I'm holed up somewhere in deep in the Pennines, squirreled away, preparing for the challenge against the quadrilla injunction, which will be conducted in the Manchester Civil Courts next Tuesday and Wednesday. And I have a great team helping me here. But nonetheless, this is going to be the third attempt by the unconventional gas companies to effectively outlaw all opposition beyond standing on the side of the road and waving a placard. So, if anybody was in any doubt that the Tory government is effectively colluding with the corporations to establish a corporatist state where the corporations have absolute priority over the residents of the country, then this should perhaps be the wake up call. Now here where I'm staying, and it's a beautiful day, but I thought I'd just do it from the interior of the room here for a change. But there's a lot going on right now, and of course yesterday was the UCOG hearing. And not too surprisingly, Judge Mail decided to defer his ruling, perhaps not wanting to establish any kind of precedent prior to the quadrilla application being heard next Tuesday and Wednesday. And let me assure you that there's going to be an extremely robust challenge to quadrilla's application, and after the hearing, I will share with you the shenanigans that we've had to be dealing with over the last few weeks. As funnily enough, quadrilla don't necessarily, how should I say, play by Queensberry rules. Well, hey, we do what we do. We never expected this to be easy. So, nonetheless, the six women were joined by Friends of the Earth in the London courts, and they put their arguments as to why UCOG should not be granted an injunction against protest in the south of England. And of course, the south of England's getting a serious wake-up call right now. And I just want to share this with you because way back in, what would it be now? It would be way back in 2013. In fact, in August 2013, Michael Fallon, who was then the poster boy for fracking, of course, he's been disgraced. He was hung out to dry for inappropriate behaviour, which of course took the attention away from the real magnitude of the paedophilia control within the establishment. But anyway, Michael Fallon supposedly was joking when he said in a private meeting that whilst much of the discussion of potential sites for fracking has focused on the northwest, there are also deposits which might produce gas in the Weald in the south of England. He said it's all the way from Dorset through Hampshire, Sussex, East Sussex, West Sussex, all the way perhaps a bit into Surrey and even into his county of Kent. Now, funnily enough, Kent has effectively run the mother frackers out of the county, and the only licenses there were over in the east of the county, around the old coal mining areas, but that ain't going to be happening anytime soon. But of course, UCOG and Angus Energy in particular, and iGas, do have a considerable number of licensed areas in the south of England, and potentially, the Weald, that area between the North Downs and the South Downs, could be targeted in much the same way Here's what he said. He said that the beauty of the fact that there was shale gas in the south of England is that it was right underneath a lot of the people who were writing about fracking and pushing for it to go ahead in the north of England. And here's what he allegedly said. He said, the beauty of that, please don't write this down, he said, is that of course it's underneath the commentariat. All these people writing the articles about fracking in the northwest saying, why don't they get on with shale? Well, we're going to see how thick their rectory walls really are and whether they like flaring at the end of their drive. Now, one can take that a number of ways, because he was really sort of pushing the fracking agenda when he was the energy minister. But, was he perhaps also giving a hint that, maybe once people actually woke up and realized the implications of this industry, then they might have a change of heart. Now, of course, right now we almost have the perfect storm, because, in the south of England, there have been, I think it's now 7 significant tremors, earthquakes, all of greater magnitude than occurred in Priest Hall, well, actually equivalent to in a couple of cases. Because the Priest Hall earthquakes in 2011 were 1.5 and 2.3. And the earthquakes in Surrey, on April the 1st, they had a 2.7. And a second one shortly after that at 1.8. And then an hour later, 1.7. Then on April the 28th, a 1.5. The 27th of June, 2.6. 2 days later, on the 29th of June, so these were both last week, was 2.4. And then yesterday, an earthquake was measured at 3.1. And the BGS, the British Geological Society, has not ruled out the fact that they may be related in some way to the activity of the drilling companies at Horse Hill and Brockham. Now, my gut feel is that if anything, it's probably more related to Brockham, where I believe there was some re-injection. Well, both of these wells are within about 3 miles, as the crow flies, of this swarm of earthquakes. So, we got the earthquakes in the south, and there's been no seismic activity apparently in that area, not of this significance anyway, for some 50 odd years. Although the BGS says, well, there has been some record over the past 500 years. Well, quite possibly. But, bottom line is, until such time as there can be further investigation, then of course the smart thing to do would be to put a moratorium on any further activity in the south of England. Meanwhile, of course, in the north of England, I am in the area that will become much sought after, because I am in the High Pennines and about halfway between the licensed areas of Lancashire and Cheshire and those of Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire. So this is an area that will be much sought after. There's a lot of the properties around here are not on mains water. They get their water from the boreholes. But the nearest license is still less than about 10 miles away. Not that it's active yet, but nonetheless, it could be. And of course, literally just a few miles to the south of here, over the past few days, then the fires have been raging on the moorlands as the current drought really starts to take its hold. And the reservoirs around here are looking seriously depleted, and we're not really into the summer yet. So what do we got? The perfect storm situation. We've got the seismic activity in the south. We've got, we're on the cusp of massive water shortages. We're about to see hosepipe bans being implemented. I believe they are already being implemented in Northern Ireland for the first time in some 40 odd years. And yet, of course, the unconventional gas industry, which is looking to consume something in the region of about 2 million gallons of water per well. And, I think that there's a possibility that Quadrilla have somehow managed to inadvertently pressurize the aquifer that lies beneath their Preston Road site, which is why they seem to be having such significant problems with surface water. But don't expect too much transparency anytime soon. But it's really a time to keep putting the pressure on the elected representatives. Basically the Tory party are the only party that is pushing for this agenda. And, as we've seen over the last 8 years now, and of course in times prior, particularly under Margaret Thatcher, the focus is on the supremacy of the corporations and a very small number of people making out like bandits while the rest are left to suffer and pick up the pieces. So it's going to be very interesting to see what evolves from here. Somehow I don't think the seismic activity is now over in the south, and the magnitude of the tremors between 2.7 and 3, not yet tsunami inducing, and probably didn't put too much stress on the Rectory walls. But who's to say that that's not going to increase? And there's a distinct possibility, of course, that if there is further exploration drilling in the area and ultimate flow testing, who's to say what effect that's going to have on the properties across the south of England? And as Michael Fallon observed, many of those writing about this and making the decisions in Westminster live in these areas. Meanwhile, here in the north of England, what's interesting, of course, is that there was the Reclaim the Power event at Preston New Road last week, and Quadrilla seemed to be playing that down for some reason. But I'm sure that's going to come up for discussion in the court hearing next week. So meanwhile, I'm going to get back into my work here in preparing for the hearing. And if you're at a loose end next Tuesday, Wednesday, then please do come along to the Manchester Civil Courts in Bridge Street, and let's see what unfolds, and hopefully Judge Pelling, will do the right thing, because it is our generation that is on the cusp of leaving a horrendous legacy for future generations. And, all that stands now between what's left of the democracy in this country and a corporatist state where the corporations effectively have free rein to do whatever the hell they want to do, all that stands between them at the moment are a few judges. So, let's see which side of the fence they're sitting on. So thanks for joining me. Apparently this weather is going to continue through the next few days. So enjoy your weekend. I'm afraid that my head is going to be in the files here, and building my opposition to the Quadrilla injunction. So thanks for joining me this morning, and thank you to all those people that have been sending me messages asking about my well-being. And just to let you know, I am in good shape, and hopefully normal service will be resumed once we've got through the Quadrilla injunction hearing next week. So have a great weekend, and I'll catch you with you next week.